The start of the school year in Ukraine was supposed to bring relief after some 2 years of coronavirus restrictions. Instead, the Russian invasion upended its education system. Ukrainian officials saying that Kremlin forces have shelled over 1,000 schools, fully destroying 95. Not even educational facilities converted into emergency shelters have been spared. Still, teachers across the country are doing whatever they can to continue to offer a safe education. Among them, Zoya Lytvyn, a Ukrainian entrepreneur and education expert. She joins me now for Perspective. Zoya, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for supporting Ukraine. Happy to be here with you.
So to start, before we get to the impact that the war has had on Ukraine, you lead Us Victoria, a non-profit public organization focused on education. Can you tell us more about what it aims to do and how you've had to adapt your activities in the face of the war?
So before war, we focused on three main directions. It's quality education, access to quality education for deprived children. It's innovative educational projects like new K-12 schools, and it's teachers' empowerment, their training and development. But at the moment, of course, all my team and all our initiatives, they are focused on refugee education and education for displaced children.
So what does schooling look like now for the majority of Ukrainian children as the war continues?
So by law, if you have war in the country, educational process stops. And now not a single school in Ukraine can't work face-to-face. So education stopped for 4.2 million of Ukrainian children. And now we have 6.11 million refugees outside the country and a huge amount of displaced children inside the country. Schools try to work online, but it's impossible for all the schools because some of them are in rural areas and kids don't have normal devices there to switch to online because this is the only way to have education for our children. Many of them, they have to run, even if they have quality online education, to bomb shelters. And sometimes we have to stay here for 9 hours in a row. And I'm still happy that kids try their best to connect and teachers try their best to keep teaching. And for COVID pandemics, government reached my team and engaged us in creating platform for online education that can be used all over Ukraine and for children outside Ukraine. And now we have 500,000 kids learning only on that platform. And they learn there every single day, connecting from bomb shelters, from their homes when they are able to be there. And we also have students from all over the world, like connecting from 120 different countries.
To tail end off of what you said there, I've spoken to a high school student, a Ukrainian high school student myself, whose schooling has been irregular. He was able to connect here in France to some of his classes, but not necessarily all day, not all of them. So what do you think the consequences will be for students like him, for example, who are in high school, who need to validate a certain, I imagine, number of requirements in order to then move on to university?
So now Ukrainian government made a row of initiatives to prepare that kids for a national multi-test. They made that test. Usually we had a series of them, like 3, minimum 4, 5, it depending on where you would like to enter, what kind of university. And now it's all one test. And to make it more safe, not to go somewhere 4 times, it's only once. So they're adapting to this war reality. And also we have a series of webinars that helps you to be prepared for the test, to understand what is a say writing in this type of war, how it will look technically. So education can't be stopped because continuing to learn, our kids are fighting for their future and we need to do it.
I want to turn to what's happening in the occupied regions of Ukraine, Zoya, because we've seen Russian forces try to change the education of what of the schooling that these children are receiving. What does that look like?
It looks awful, frankly speaking. And so many teachers, they were forced to come back to school and to switch to new Russian curriculum, and they don't want to do it. So we receive many requests on what we have to do, how we should act. So many teachers, they left those territories that are invaded at the moment. I've heard from my colleagues that two of their colleague teachers were killed because they were very pro-Ukrainian, and they refused to teach, and many of them left. And some of them had to say, yes, okay, we will do what you want, because they have their family there and they can't evacuate the family, or they can't evacuate at all. So they switched. And Ukrainian government is trying to support them also. But even our Minister of Education, he said, okay, if you feel your life is in danger, do what you feel you have to do.
So beyond the obvious trauma that comes for educators and students in situations like that, do you worry that these differences in education moving forward will further divide Ukraine?
So if war will last longer, they definitely will, because what we see now from invaders, they use education as a weapon, actually. And for example, they put on fire all Ukrainian books in those schools that are on invaded territories. They made some kind of show out of it. They said, no, those books in Ukrainian, they shouldn't be used anymore. They taught you wrong things for the last 30 years of independence. It's an important tool for them, and they will use it to divide Ukraine for sure. But I really hope that they won't have time for this. And I am inspired that so many teachers, they were not afraid. They left those territories, they quit their jobs, they refused to be teachers.
So speaking of that some degree of hope that you expressed there, Zoya, if hoping the war ends sooner rather than later, what do you expect the priorities for schools to be, where the hostilities have ceased, or looking forward to the entire country in the future?
I don't think, if it will last not so long, that there will be a critical damage. Of course, if we don't speak about those schools that are physically damaged, like we already have 1,600 institutions that are critically damaged, and 144 schools all over Ukraine that are completely destroyed. And if we speak about children, for example, I mentioned that online platform National, and so many of them connect to this platform from occupied areas, from Luhansk, Donetsk, and from Crimea zone, from Kherson district, which is now completely occupied by Russians, and they tried to make there some kind of referendum twice, but they didn't manage, thanks to our Ukrainians there.
Zoya Lytvyn, unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but thank you so much for your time and coming on the show today, for your great work, and all the best to you and your family.
Thank you.